of the world, to the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into it.
I mean, there's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah.
So suddenly all these people who like to consider themselves so powerful, all of a sudden they are just powerless to do anything here. You see what's going on here? And did you notice, by the way, what he said? Quote, "We're not very fond of releasing terrorists." Listen, if they can call a wrongly deported innocent man a terrorist and send him to a foreign gulag, then nobody is safe. Caitlin Collins then asked Trump about his own comments that he said the other day that he would listen to the Supreme Court. Trump naturally insulted her. Watch this.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. Please go ahead.
Then Stephen Miller and Trump said that the Supreme Court's ruling was actually a unanimous ruling in favor of the Trump administration. This is one of the most heinous, bald-faced lies that we have witnessed yet.
I promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for it?
But the Supreme Court is asking to...
And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time. No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
So that is, of course, the opposite of what happened. That is utterly Orwellian and anti-American. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously that Trump must facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia. There was no gray area here. The court wrote, quote, "The rest of the district court's order remains in effect, but requires clarification on remand. The order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador." Stephen Miller then called it, quote, "arrogant" for the press to ask about Abrego Garcia and lied about the Supreme Court ruling some more. Watch this.
Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Can you just also respond to that question? Because, it's asked by CNN and they always ask it with a slant. Because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13.
We've got a lot more to report here. I'll be back after this quick break. Did you know Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the US with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers? They have all the plants your yard needs, like fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. Whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees has you covered. Find the perfect fit for your climate and space. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. Their Live and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. Plus, get support from trained plant experts on call to help you plan your landscape, choose the right plants, and learn how to care for them. I got a lemon tree from Fast Growing Trees, and it's my favorite thing in my yard. I was worried about ordering plants online, but it arrived fresh, strong, and ready to plant. Plus, now I get to just walk outside and pick my own citrus, not to mention it smells amazing every time I go out. And by the way, big yard, small yard, no yard at all, doesn't matter. Fast Growing Trees has over 6,000 plants to fit any space, from indoor plants to fruit trees to full-size privacy trees and more. Fast Growing Trees has plant experts on call, so if you're like me and don't have a green thumb, they'll help you choose the right plant and keep it thriving. This spring, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to our show get 15% off their first purchase when using the code MIDAS at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code MIDAS, M-E-I-D-A-S, at checkout. Fastgrowingtrees.com, code MIDAS. Now is the perfect time to plant. Use MIDAS to save today. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Here, Trump said that he's open to sending American citizens to El Salvadoran torture camps.
I think just a follow-up question, a clarification. You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What, do you think there's a special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too. And I'm all for it. Because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people. Really bad people. Every bit as bad as the ones coming in. And I made the statement when I heard about this a long time ago now, 4 years ago. When I heard that this guy was having open borders, I said every single criminal from all over the world is going to be dumped into our country. And that's what happened. The jails of the Congo were emptied out.
And by the way, here's footage that was captured on the El Salvadoran government's live stream. This did not make it on the cable networks in the United States. The quality isn't great, but you could hear Trump endorse the idea of sending what he calls, quote, homegrowns, that means American citizens, to El Salvadoran prison camps. Watch this.
Homegrown criminals next. Yeah. I said, homegrowns are next. The homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right? It's not big enough.
No, yeah.
Marco Rubio, a man who has completely sold his soul, jumped in during the meeting to lie about Abrego Garcia's immigration status and play dumb as to why anyone would be upset about the situation.
Even I outlined it. I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin. Except for Venezuela, that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President, no, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
By the way, this is not the only court order that Trump was defying today. The Associated Press reported that their journalists remain blocked from the Oval Office despite a court order demanding their reinstatement. The AP said, quote, our journalists were blocked from the Oval Office today. We expect the White House to restore AP's participation in the pool as of today, as provided in the injunction order. Speaking of the media, Trump attacked CNN as fake news and said that they hate our country. Watch this.
Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, what, 95%? It's incredible.
That, as of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, you know, like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out, because I think they hate our country, actually.
Yeah, this is very.
But it's a shame. You're right. Isn't that a great question? Why doesn't the media? Why don't they put out numbers?
Yeah, 99%. I mean, it's crazy, right?
We're doing great.
The El Salvadoran president told Trump that he has 350 million people to liberate in the United States, but in